What's up, fight fanatics? The UFC Heavyweight Division has a new breed of fighter, with two hyper-talented and relatively young prospects rising to the top of the weight class. Tom Aspinall is coming off his dominant performance against a formidable heavyweight veteran in Alexander Volkov at UFC Fight Night, London. While Tai Tuivasa knocked out the UFC knockout king Derrick Lewis in his last fight early this year at UFC 271. The heavyweight division is known for having older men at the top, but now the UFC has two young talents injecting themselves into the mix for title contention. That's why, in today's video, we're going to break down what a fight between Tom Aspinall and Tai Tuivasa would look like. Honestly, more I would like to see them against Jon Jones. I don't know how it would be today, but then, when Jones hit his peak when he was in good shape, it would be interesting to see these fights, of course in heavyweight. But let's not dream and analyze what we have today. Heavyweights is for the big boys, and both Tom Aspinall and Tai Tuivasa fit the bill. Aspinall has a 3-inch height and reach advantage over Tuivasa, coming in at 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. Even though he's slightly shorter than his British counterpart, Tuivasa walks around a bit heavier on his 6'2" frame. While the size difference isn't entirely insignificant, it's unlikely to play a major factor in how this fight plays out. We know that Tuivasa is going to come into the octagon to try and do what he always does, swing and bang. While Aspinall is likely to implement a more cerebral approach. On notable things here is speed. Tuivasa probably has an edge in raw punching power, but Aspinall is one of the fastest fighters in the heavyweight division. Tuivasa is pretty quick himself, and it will be interesting to see how much speed ends up being a factor if these two ever face each other. We're calling the attributes a wash, 1-1 going into the second. Factor 2, the grappling. This is the one that has a lopsided area, and maybe the X factor in determining who wins the fight. Like we said before, Tai Tuivasa is coming in there to throw hammers and take your head off. They don't call him Bam Bam for nothing. With such an emphasis on getting a knockout, grappling is tertiary. In fact, in his MMA career, Tuivasa has never won via submission. Most of his technique in the area would be defensive against takedowns, but even Derrick Lewis was able to take him to the canvas. Across from him, Aspinall has displayed tremendous wrestling and grappling abilities against high-level grapplers. His perfectly timed double-leg takedown against Volkov was a thing of beauty, especially factoring in that Volkov is considered one of the harder heavyweights to take down. The fact that he was able to seal the deal with a straight armbar, a relatively rare submission in MMA, shows Aspinall is on a different level when it comes to grappling. The Brit is a clear winner here. Not only has he demonstrated brilliant technique and execution in his grappling, he mixes it up extremely well in his game plan. Two factors deep, and it's 2-1 Aspinall. Factor 3, the striking. Here's when things get interesting. Some might want to criticize Tuivasa's approach for not putting enough emphasis on wrestling, the cornerstone base of modern MMA. However, things are a bit different at heavyweight, and Tuivasa is so good at what he does. Who needs wrestling anyways? The Australian is currently on a 5-fight winning streak, all by knockout. The heavy-handed brawler has devastating one-shot knockout power, which he mostly recently displayed with a brutal elbow KO of Derrick Lewis. Don't mistake Bam Bam for a pure brawler, though. His striking technique is excellent, only getting better after 3-fight skid earlier in his career. He invites people into his game, setting up traps that result in his opponents taking naps. He's so good at it that 13 of his 14 MMA victories have come by the way of knockout or TKO. The thing is, Tom Aspinall is also a very sharp boxer. Skill-wise, his pure boxing is some of the best in the division. The last time Tuivasa fought against a boxer this sharp was probably against Junior Dos Santos, a fight he ended up losing. Aspinall lacks the touch of death, one-touch knockout power of Tuivasa, but technique-wise, he might be ever so slightly sharper. Aspinall himself has 9 KO/TKO victories of his 12 MMA wins, meaning he stopped his opponent with strikes 75% of the time. Make no mistake, Aspinall is incredibly dangerous on the feet. When looking at his fights, a knockout win for either fighter seems a likely outcome. However, given his proficiency in scoring the knockout, we're going to edge the striking for Tuivasa. It's all tied up, 2-2 going into the fourth factor. Factor 4. This is one area where Tuivasa has made tremendous strides over the course of his career. During his 3-fight losing streak, the only losses on his ledger, he often put himself into vulnerable positions that allowed his opponent to finish this fight. Taking risks is part of the package with his fighting style, but his approach has gotten more tactical in his more recent fights. A great example of this was his bout against Greg Hardy at UFC 264. He got clipped with a good shot, but stayed patient, ultimately luring Hardy into a trap and knocking him out cold. An earlier version of Tuivasa might have rushed in after getting clipped. Still, despite his advancements in this aspect of the fight game, Tom Aspinall is an incredible cerebral heavyweight. The way he and his team implement game plans is top-notch, and one of the reasons why the 28-year-old English fighter is still undefeated in the UFC. Think of when Aspinall fought Andrei Arlovski, former UFC heavyweight champion. Arlovski was so surprised by Aspinall takedowns that he ultimately lost the fight via rear naked choke. Only the second time Arlovski had ever lost via submission in his incredibly long and storied career. Aspinall recently commented that he likes to keep his opponents guessing, enjoying the fact that it's hard to figure him out. The approach to mix everything up so well has paid dividends, giving Aspinall the edge here. Going into the final factor is 3-2 Aspinall. Factor 5. Cardio, hard, chin. Tuivasa has heart in spades, carrying the spirit of the indigenous people of New South Wales, Australia, with him into every fight. Even when badly hurt, he implements a go-out-on-your-shield policy, never going easily. His attitude inside the octagon meshes perfectly with his funny and vibrant personality that has made him one of the most popular fighters in the UFC today. Everyone loves watching Tai Tuivasa walk out to Barbie Girl and then swang and bang inside the cage. So Tuivasa gets an edge here. The physical heart has another job though, cardio. Although most of Tuivasa fights don't go the distance, he has shown signs of slowing as the bout goes on. He has respectable cardio for a heavyweight though. It's just that he doesn't get a lot of opportunities to show it off. Only 2 fights in his career have ever gone to decision. Aspinall, on the other hand, is known for having a great gas tank, keeping good shape between fights. Edge, Aspinall. It all comes down to the chin. Aspinall has never been knocked out in his career, while Tuivasa has, although only once. Still, Tuivasa is known to take one to give one, trading some heavy blows in his fights against Lewis, Hardy, and Dos Santos. Simply by those metrics, Aspinall gets the nod here. After 5 factors, the final score is 4-2 Aspinall. How the fight plays out. As long as Tuivasa is standing, he'll have a chance to end this fight. We pointed out earlier, everyone knows Tuivasa is coming to hunt for a KO. The question becomes whether or not he'll be able to keep the fight standing. Given the way Aspinall and his team tailor-make their game plans specific to each fighter he faces, it's unlikely that he will willingly play into Tai's game on the feet. With Tuivasa's suspect takedown defense in play, you're very likely to see Aspinall shooting in those well-timed double legs. He just has to be careful of the uppercuts and knees for Tuivasa, who is more likely to stay offensive than sprawl. Every round starts on the feet though, and Aspinall will have to use his jab and tight counters to keep Tuivasa honest. He'll want to establish his hands and get Tai's respect so he can set up his takedowns more effectively. When it comes down to it, Aspinall has more ways to win. He has several advantages in key areas, whereas Tuivasa seems to need a KO to get his hand raised. Still, he's heavyweight and Tuivasa is one of the best at separating people from their consciousness. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe for future MMA content. Thanks for watching.